Picture this for a moment. Imagine a vast and empty sea of sand dunes, as far as the eye can see, seemingly with no end in sight and nothing else between you and the sand dunes on the horizon. This is what most people seem to imagine when they see a desert. However, this is not always the case. Deserts come in many forms and with many types of life that inhabit them. Deserts are home to a vast ecosystem of life that is able to survive only within these harsh climates. More impressive still is how many of these plants and animals are able to survive with limited resources and some of the harshest conditions on Earth, and survive long enough to reproduce and repopulate these seemingly empty lands. Every major field of science needs to be examined in order to provide a greater understanding of the world around us, and the worlds beyond the one we call home. This documentary will take you on a journey through the lands many would claim to be empty and shed some light on one of the organisms that these lands call home, as well as provide some insight as to the struggles of the field of desert ecology and explain why fields of study like desert ecology are so important to our understanding of the world and of life as we know it. This is Deserts, the harshest places on Earth. Take a moment and close your eyes. Try to imagine what a desert might look like. Think of all of the adjectives some people might use to describe a desert. Dry, hot, empty, and harsh are all terms that come to mind when the word desert is mentioned. Those are all the terms most people would come up with, right? Now, open your eyes and take a look at this. This doesn't seem like much of a desert, does it? There's a lot of shrubs, some small trees, and a few cactuses. This seems like it might just be everyday brush, doesn't it? Think again. This is a part of the Chihuahuan Desert, which takes up a large portion of North America and is home to many different types of flora and fauna. We don't want to get lost in all of these plants, though. We just want to focus on one native to this area. This right here is the remnants of a Texas persimmon tree. The fruits normally look like this, but all of the fruits on this one are dried up, due to there having been months of no rain in this part of the desert. This was the focus of a study that my class attempted to put together to answer one simple question. Does it make a difference whether or not Texas persimmon seeds will germinate if they pass through the digestive tract of an animal? We went out as a group in this area and collected several samples of seeds, both from the dried up fruit husks we could find and from the scat piles we happened to find while out on this trail. We had about 7 total scat piles and an entire pile of fruit that we had gathered. We separated the seeds out into separate piles and buried them beneath a centimeter of damp soil in 2 aluminum trays and left them covered for 2 weeks. Our results were rather interesting. There was one pre-existing study that covered the plant that we were covering and was a more broad study than our own. Our study was meant to answer the next logical step in our understanding of seed germination amongst the flora within the Chihuahuan Desert, and answer that we did. Feel free to take a moment and examine our data. If you need to pause this video, feel free to do so. Are you satisfied? I sure hope so, because putting this data together was not easy, and coming up with a statistically supported conclusion proved to be difficult. There was quite a bit of procedural error that went into the reason why much of the data that was shown on screen is not statistically accurate. So we went with the data that was statistically accurate and highlighted that data to show the most accurate statistics that we were able to derive from our study. From what we were able to gather from the data, Texas persimmon seeds show no significant difference in the ability to germinate regardless of whether or not they pass through the digestive tract of an animal. To most people, this may seem insignificant in the grand scheme of our understanding of science, and within the context of decade-defining discoveries like seeing the first black hole, this study is not as significant. However, what this study shows us is that science is not as simple as YouTube videos and pop science articles make it out to be. Studies like these are, when fully correct, quite important to our basic understanding of how life works, and help to set the threshold for our understanding of what types of flora and fauna will survive within the conditions of some of the harshest climates on Earth. After all, the more we understand the mechanisms of life on our planet, the better we will be able to understand where it began, how it evolved, and how life managed to fill every niche on our planet, as well as understand how life can form on other planets. Something as simple as understanding how conditions like the lack of water or the lack of easy-to-access nutrients affect life in harsher climates will help us to understand how life can fill certain niches and how life will sometimes go extinct within other conditions. A good example of this is the widespread desertification of large areas of the world, especially on continents like Africa. Much of the continent of Africa is facing desertification, and large areas of land are beginning to resemble deserts, like some parts of the Chihuahuan Desert, more and more. Many reasons go into explaining why this is the case, and fields like desert ecology provide the knowledge necessary to curb issues like expanding desertification, for when we understand how deserts form and expand, we can then learn how to prevent desertification in areas that support life that cannot normally survive within desert conditions. Plenty of examples of how to solve the issue of desertification have been presented, but most of these solutions are best to be examined through the field and the lens of desert ecology, as this particular subset of ecology helps us understand how these ecosystems form and operate. Understanding deserts helps to bring us closer to understanding how life can survive within harsh conditions, and how life can change and alter the ecosystem around it to better suit its needs. Examples of life shaping the environment around it are companies and organizations transforming the desert into sustainable grassland through the cultivation of small ecosystems, where water and decomposition are regulated through the plants and other organisms within the ecosystem. These self-sustaining ecosystems are fine examples of how life can not only survive harsh environments, it can shape these environments as well. These plants and animals are all part of small ecosystems that are sustained within a small area that is set within a sea of otherwise unsustainable seas of sand. These areas of life are self-sustaining due to a delicate cycle of recycling valuable resources like water and nitrogen. Through the continuous recycling of these resources, these areas of land are able to sustain life that would otherwise be unable to survive within these lands. Projects like this are being explored in areas of the world that need sustainable farming and other resources of food for both humans and wildlife alike. Projects like this are extremely valuable as they show how to make sustainable farming in areas that would otherwise be unsustainable to do so, and help showcase how life may have once populated our planet and cultivated it into the place we now call home. Conclusions. Deserts are large expanses that hold seemingly little to no life, but are, in fact, full of ecosystems that are sustained through a delicate balance of resource distribution and the will to survive. Projects like the one that was discussed may not seem important on the surface, but are important to attempting to answer how life works, and what we can do to help ensure life on this planet is able to not only survive, but thrive alongside us. Our world is changing, for better or for worse, and understanding how life forms within harsh environments like deserts may help us to not only save forms of life on our planet that are facing extinction, but it may also help us to understand what life may look like in planets across the stars, around the planet we call home. Hey, are you still here? If you are, please consider hitting a like on this video, and consider subscribing to this channel. It really does help me out a lot, and I would like to do more projects like this in the future. So if you did enjoy it, please let me know down below in the comments, or by, of course, leaving a like or subscribing to this channel. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good one.